Hello, and welcome to another episode of Exit Rich. I'm so excited today to I call him my very good friend. We've known each other for a decade, it seems like. We've met at some masterminds in California, and we're a part of a mastermind now. So please, everybody, welcome Aaron Young. Aaron Young. You know, you are pretty young, Aaron. Anyway, Aaron Young is a renowned entrepreneur with more than 30 years of experience. And he's been involved in several multi-million-dollar companies under his belt. Aaron has made it his life's work to really arm business owners with success formulas that immediately provide exceptional growth, exponential growth, and protection. And that's why I really wanted to have Aaron on the show today, because everybody who knows me knows I do mergers and acquisitions. I specialize in buying, selling, fixing, growing companies. And one of the biggest things that I have heartburn over is in due diligence when, we're expecting business owners to be compliant. We're expecting them to tell me the truth, tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. And we're expecting them to have all their ducks in a row, have all their documents organized, and, really run a tight machine, a well-oiled machine. And what Aaron does best, now Aaron's been involved in lots of different companies. He's bought them, he's sold his own personal companies. But what he really does best, I think, is really arming business owners with the protection and the compliance they need to, number one, keep out of trouble. Number two, really run their business on autopilot. And Aaron can talk about so many other things than what we're going to talk about today. So we'll probably have him back on the show. And he's here today to keep you out of trouble, have you run, like I said, that well-oiled machine. And when you're in due diligence, then there will be no hiccups along the way. And that's the biggest thing. We get stuck in due diligence because we don't have the meetings, you know what I mean, Aaron, all the stuff that we need to keep our business running smoothly, we don't have. So why don't we just get started? Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Here I am.
And so here he is. And so, Aaron, let's get started. Tell our listeners a little bit more about you. And I can't wait to hear what Aaron Young was like as a little young boy.
Ooh, all right. Well, wow. And a story popped into my mind as soon as you asked that. I didn't think we were going to go there, but okay. Hi, Michelle. It's so nice to be here with you in this setting. And I just want everybody to know that I too love this book. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I grew up with a mom and dad who were great, who loved me, who thought I was, I could do anything. And they told me that. My wife has let me know that I'm the luckiest guy in the world because I grew up in a circumstance and at a time when everybody around me was telling me I could accomplish cool things.
Well, that's fortunate because so many entrepreneurs grew up in poverty. Like look at Tony Robbins. They grew up in poverty. They grew up in a dysfunctional home, a lot of childhood baggage. So you kind of had it the flip side, which is amazing because we're going to dig more into your story. So I love hearing about that.
Well, they didn't have any money. Dad worked a couple jobs. Mom did daycare in our home. So there are always little kids running around. So they did what they needed to do to survive and raise 5 kids. And I learned early as the oldest, if I was going to have, I was born in 1964. So I was the right age, like when Nike shoes came out, or, there was something called Britannia scroll jeans that were popular, in like 77, 78, 79. So if I was going to have any of the things above Kmart or JCPenney, I had to figure out how to make the money. So I started making money as a teenager, as a young kid, and figured out, as a matter of fact, do we have time I'll tell the story really fast.
Sure.
This guy at church calls me up one day, I was 14, and he said, "Hey, Aaron, do you know how to paint?" I said, "You mean like paint pictures?" He says, "No, paint walls." I said, I mean, I could do it. Why? He managed an apartment complex. And so I went over, and for like $3 an hour back then in 1977, 78, I started, helping him turn apartments when somebody'd move out, and I'd go in there and paint these apartments. When I got to be 16 years old, the guy that owned that building and a bunch of other buildings asked me to come paint the exterior of his house, which took a few weeks, right, to do a good job. Well, during that time, I said, now I could drive, right? At 14, I couldn't drive. I was pedaling my little Schwinn. But at 16, I could drive. And so I said to the owner of all these buildings, I said, I don't know what you pay your managers to turn these apartments, but I will do all of them, all your buildings for $10 an hour. And so I'd been at 3 for the manager. So I tell this guy $10 an hour. He goes, done. And before you know it, I'm driving around with a bunch of other teenagers, kind of like Tom Sawyer, when they're, where they're painting the fence. Right?
And you were 14 back then?
Well, that was when I turned 16. I was able to drive. So
Gotcha.
So by 16, I had all these other 3 or 4 other teenage kids painting in my place. And I'm going around, oh, we missed a spot. Oh, do that. And by the time I was 18, we were doing entire renovations of buildings, redoing floors, appliances, countertops, everything for that same company. And that was my first experience in going, oh, by just flipping your perspective, you can make a lot more money and get other people to do the work instead of being crazy running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to do all the work yourself, which is, of course, we both work with entrepreneurs. And that's what most entrepreneurs think is what they're supposed to do, work themselves to death until they either close shop or find an exit. And I learned young, it didn't have to be that way.
I'll die from a heart attack or from stress, which happens quite often, believe it or not.
So that was my first idea. That was my first, I do know it. That was my first taste of entrepreneurism. I started my first official company.
And you were still in full-time school, right? You were a full-time school.
Yeah, I was in high school. Yeah. So I go off to college, to junior college, because I had a 1.9 cumulative GPA,
A 1.9?
1.9. So I think I actually.
But you had a bank account.
I did have money. I did never like school, but I was chief of staff at the radio station. The high school I went to as the oldest radio station in Oregon. I was chief of staff junior and senior year, so I was running the radio station. And then when I turned 19 or 18, I started a recycling company. We were the second recycling company in Portland, Oregon, which is a very green city. And so I had about 5,000 monthly customers that we picked up old newspapers and magazines and stuff from about 18 until I got married, so at 22, and sold that business. That was my first sale, made money on my first sale, started one of the first cellular phone dealerships in the Northwest in 1986. Grew that up to multiple stores. The market shifted. I sold the stuff I could sell, closed the stuff that I needed to just close because it went to big box stores, and our guys like me they didn't want guys like us anymore. So we sold off what we could, got recruited at 29 to be vice president of sales for a multinational NASDAQ traded company. So I was one of 3 VPs that built that up, quadrupled sales while I was there, made a bunch of money in the stock, and started buying companies in 1997 and have been doing it ever since.
So how did you get into compliance? How did you get in? Because I think, when I met you, your main business was around, compliant protection, making sure that companies were equipped with everything that they need to keep them out of trouble, to keep them, running their business smoothly, et cetera. How did you get into that?
So, and that's one of the companies that I own does that. So so remember I said I started buying companies.
Yeah. So you bought that company.
I bought a few Nevada and Wyoming incorporation services. So I think my partner and I had 5 businesses that we had, and we were focused, and we had also a company in Rome, Italy. We had another one in British Columbia. I was doing a lot of things there.
Well, all your companies congruent, or were they all very different?
Very different. I mean, very different. Okay. Painting to recycling to cellular to financial services to oh my gosh. I mean, we've sold frozen novelties. We've sold special glass, like a greenhouse. I mean, I've done all kinds of stuff over the years. I buy stuff. So the compliance thing, I had these Nevada and Wyoming incorporators, in the late 90s and right around 2000. And 2001, the owner of like the granddaddy of all the Nevada incorporators, called Laughlin Associates, though Mr. Laughlin died, their trust lawyer knew me and knew that I owned other competing companies and said, do you want to buy Laughlin? So I did. Now, here's the thing for your listeners who want to buy or sell or grow a business.
Other than calling me.
Well, so
I said, other than calling me.
Yeah, well, so this company was 29 years old, Michelle.
Yeah.
80 employees, about 9 million in revenue. They had 17 lawsuits going at the time. They were suing clients and people were suing them. They had 300% turnover in their employees. 300, that every job was being replaced 3 times a year.
Oh my gosh.
They had this weird, very sexist, very alt-right wing, like they had a prayer meeting. Now, I don't care if people pray. I'm a prayer. But to require your whole team to gather and have a prayer meeting every morning.
That doesn't seem legal. Is that even legal?
Well, I don't know, but it was Carson City, Nevada, back in the day.
Yeah, so, I mean, I believe in praying too. I don't know if you can make your employees pray.
Oh, women had to wear skirts or dresses. Men had to wear a tie. And I don't have any problem with professionalism either, but it was a very sexist culture. And I won't go into all the details. The point is, you said, how did I get into it?
Yes.
So it was an opportunity. I thought I would fire all the employees, keep the age on the corporation, keep the client list, and just morph it under the roof of one of the other incorporating companies, one of the other, resident agent businesses. But I got in there and we interviewed all the staff the first week. I fired 30 people the first week, and then I repositioned. There's, you know how it is. You have your style, your P's, what is it, 6 P's, 5 P's?
Yeah, that's 6 P's.
6 P's. You have your 6 P's. Whenever you're buying companies, you have to have some formula you follow. And I did that. And one of the things that I've learned to do is sometimes you have to fire people. You say, Michelle, thank you for all you've done. We're terminating your position. Now, here's another position that's available if you are interested in it. But, I know you're in customer service, but I'm going to move you to sales. Or I know you're in accounting, but I'm going to move you to the front desk. And they can come or not. That's up to them. And, but we did
that's
that
after you really get to know the people. You get to know their skill sets. You get to know how they're working right now in the current environment. You're not just going in there and moving people, getting rid of people. I mean, you're doing some studying.
I did. The first week, I interviewed everyone. I made little 3x5 cards on everybody. And then like a talent show, I kind of laid them all out on the conference table with my partner.
Oh, good. Okay.
And we said, what do we want to do here? We knew we had to get rid of the toxic part. So we fired those people. And then we looked around and said, okay, we need to reorient the workforce here. Who do we want? Good to great, right? Who do we want on the bus?
Yeah, good to great.
And we did that, and almost everybody stayed. So we ended up with like 40 some people. And then we utterly went through and started to fix the culture. And the point is, when you said, how do you get into it? And my experience.
How do you get into compliance? Right.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. So first thing you have to do is go, okay, let's make sure everything's working that's supposed to work so we can still pay our bills. And then what opportunities have been ignored? So they were only Nevada. We went immediately to all 50 states. They were only resident agent, so that they'll form your corporation or LLC. And then LLCs, 21 years ago, LLCs were not super popular yet. So we'll form your corporation or LLC, and we'll be here if the sheriff needs to bring the lawsuit, resident agent, and we can answer your phone and forward your mail if you want to have a Nevada corporation. That was the company. We went to all 50 states. Okay, that was good. Then we have all these people with multiple companies, and they're asking ad hoc questions. Well, how do these two companies work together? How do I know when it's appropriate to move money between them? What's my role? What's the tax implication of this daisy chain, right?
Right.
And so we were one-off consulting, and I said, and this is a good lesson for your people. I said to my team, I think we're getting into practicing law without a license. So we need to time out.
Gotta be very careful because I get into those scenarios too sometimes. Like, what?
Well, because we know a lot of answers, but you have
Yeah.
to be careful, especially your team who doesn't even know necessarily why they know the information. They just know, here's an answer. I don't know what's below it, right? So we went and got 2 legal opinions from big law firms and figured out what we could do. And we offered a service. And there's so much I can say about being I was talking about this to a guy earlier today. We had all of a sudden we had a thing we could do where we could be not legally, but de facto board secretary. Because guys, everybody, if you're a C Corp, an S Corp, or a limited liability company, you have to have a board, even if it's just you. Even if you're the only owner, the only director, the only officer, the only employee, if you want the tax deductions, if you want the asset protection, if you want that corporate veil to stand between you and the obligations of the company, so the ship can sink without you sinking with it. You must follow the
that's
rules.
so important what you just said. So I want to make sure everybody grasps a hold of that and really, listens, and not just listens, but implements. You have to have a board no matter what. No matter how many employees you have, right? If you're
It's required by the law.
If you're a party of one, you have to have a board. And most companies don't have that. I would say, gosh, what would you say out of small to mid-sized companies? What percentage would you say that don't have that?
Well, I'll say 2 things. One is they all have a board, but they don't know they do.
They have a board, but they don't know they do.
Because they're the board.
Correct.
By
and
the
they're
law.
not properly set up by law. Correct?
Correct. So let's, okay, I can geek out on this stuff. Okay, first of all.
Why do you think I have you talking about it so you can geek out on us?
Okay. So, okay. Here's sort of what happens in my experience. Somebody says, I'm going to quit my job and start a business, or I'm going to start a side hustle, or I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, but I'm going to start doing something. Maybe they start an entity, maybe they get a corporation or LLC, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're just a sole proprietor for a while. They have a doing business as, they have a name, but it's just them. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on sole proprietor. Just say this. If you're a sole proprietor, you can have 1,000 employees. You can have 1 million employees. You're not obligated to have an entity. Just remember, everything that you own is at risk. Everything. The art above your couch, your grandfather's coin collection that you inherited, your everything. Everything. If you have a problem, if you get sued and you lose, which piercing the corporate veil, well, this isn't even a corporate veil yet. If you lose, because they'll name you, you're going to lose some stuff. So 500 years ago,
you can lose everything.
Everything. I can tell you story after story of people that have come to me after that and said, I can never go through that again.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would ever be a sole proprietor. It makes 0 sense, but go ahead.
Because it's easy, and if they're just getting started, they don't have, a few $100 to start. They just don't do it. And then they get going and they go, well, nobody's ever sued me. Nobody's ever threatened me. I've never been audited. And they live in this Pollyanna fantasy world of hopefully that'll never happen. I don't think it will ever. I'm nice. I'm honest. I'm small. These are all fantasies. These are all lies we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better. But anyway, so sole proprietor, everything's at risk. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, just quick history lesson, merchants in Europe primarily would lease or rent a boat, a big ship, and get a crew, and they would put merchandise on the ship, and they would sail to some other port, sell that stuff and buy other stuff, and go to another port, sell, buy, and they would make some money, right? Well, theoretically. But if you've ever seen any of these little wooden ships, they're not like the most high-tech kind of boat. And a lot of them went down.
Yeah.
Scuba divers love that because there's wrecks to go dive around. So ships sank. People are still looking for gold doubloons and pieces of 8, right? From the 1400s, because the ship sank. Well, the merchants understood that there was a risk, and all their investors for the voyage understood there was a risk. So they would go to the crown, to the monarchy, and say, hey, help me out. And then the crown would give a special dispensation for a corporation.
Right.
And the corporation separated the business activity from the owners. And as long as you followed the laws of how to run the business, the crown and the law would acknowledge that, yeah, the ship sank. It really sucks. Everybody lost their money. Some people died. It's really bad. But, you know, the merchant has protection against the investors. And, you know, that was probably before insurance. So no protection against what went down in the ocean. Right. But they have protection from these guys. And that's where these things came from. And what most business owners that I meet, small business owners now, who are generally good-hearted, kind, just good people, they don't understand, or they somehow reject that the only reason to have a corporation or LLC is for all the benefits, like protection against creditors. Oh, sure, I owe that money, the company does, but I set myself up right. So now company didn't work, and I just say goodbye to the $200,000 I owe to that vendor because this didn't work. And that's why entities exist. There's tax deductions to give you incentives. There's lawsuit protection to give you incentives because so few people in the population will take the risk to be a business owner. But the main reason is protection against creditors, so that the small handful of creative, slightly insane people we call entrepreneurs will get up after failure and try again and try again. Because if you had to carry around all the debt from that failed company with you for the rest of your life, you're like, remember in, what was the Christmas Carol, Marley's ghost with the chains and the, you know, he's dragging all these chains of all of his misdeeds. Well, the government knows they need entrepreneurs to keep going. Entrepreneurs, small companies under 50 employees create 86.3% of GDP. 86.3 of our circulation of money is created by companies of less than 50 employees.
Yeah.
I mean,
agree.
The government needs you guys to function. And so
because small business is the backbone of our economy, employing over half the U.S. workforce.
That's right. It's exactly right. Another study I just read said that 83% of all new jobs created were by companies of 100 employees or less. So almost all the new jobs are coming from entrepreneurial ventures. And you might think, 100 employees is a lot of employees. That's considered a small business.
Yeah. 1,000%.
I've kind of went off on a geek out. Let's let you ask another question.
Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about the sole proprietorship. Why don't you just take a couple of steps further, talk about the difference between S Corp and C Corp real quick for our audience.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then
LLC.
And then we'll get into further protection and why these small businesses need compliance, why they need protection, why they need, to have this. Well, they have the board, but why they need to run it the right way and make sure they're compliant.
Need to do it. Yeah.
They need to do it, right? Just having it is one thing. They don't even know they have it. So I'm sure there's a huge awakening right now.
Right. So, okay. So I'll talk about that in a second. You said C Corp, S Corp, LLC. Those are the most common business entities. C Corp is, so when people say to me, hey, Aaron, which one should I, or does it matter? I had one person that you and I both know, I'm not going to drop their name, but from years ago when you and I first met, but she calls me up Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, it's a she?
It's a she.
My brain was rolling.
And she says, we're rebranding the company and we're wondering, what do you think? Is it better to say Inc., INC, or LLC? And I said, well, it's not a branding issue. Are you incorporated or do you have an LLC?
Like I'm incorporated. Solid Tucker's incorporated. Yeah.
Okay, but the point is, she's a smart person too. She's very successful, but she didn't understand that there was a difference. So, and a lot of people don't. As a matter of fact, most people that I meet, first of all, right now, everybody's forming LLCs. LLCs, that's probably 70% of what we do, forming LLCs. However, and I love LLCs. I have a number of LLCs personally.
So do I. Yeah.
But I will say this, LLCs, it's like saying, okay, I have a motorcycle and I have a minivan and I have a dump truck. All right. So you can go from home to the grocery store on any of those. You could drive the dump truck to the Safeway or Piggly Wiggly or whatever, right? You can drive it over there, or you can drive the minivan, or you can ride the motorcycle. So it'll get you from point to point, and that's C Corp, S Corp, LLC will get you from point to point.
There's a fourth choice. You can have Whole Foods delivered to you.
Well, that's a whole different thing, and that goes back
like
to
I do.
That goes back to the peas. But what I always say to people is, okay, well, if you have to go get, if you're going to take 5 kids to school or the park, do you want to do it in the dump truck? Are you going to throw them all up in the bed of the dump truck, and then pour them out when you get there? Are you going to put them one at a time on your motorcycle, or are you going to put them in the minivan? Well, we're going to use the minivan. If you want to move rock, are you going to do that on the motorcycle?
Yeah.
One little bag at a time, right?
Yep.
And so on. So what you want to do, folks, is get the right tool for the job. And there's reasons to use a C Corp. There's reasons to use an S Corp. There's reasons to use an LLC. They're not one size fits all. They're not mix and match. You get the right tool. You have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have a saw. They do different jobs. You could break the board with the hammer, but it's going to be a pretty ugly break. So much better to saw it. So the difference is, if you're going to raise money, if you're going to have a bunch of outside passive investors, if you're going to go public, if you want to be acquired by a public company, if you want to have multiple levels of stock, different rules around different classes of stock, C Corp.
Yep.
Or if you want total privacy, then you want to get a Nevada or a Wyoming C Corp, because it doesn't tie back to your personal tax returns. Okay, so that's one. Most businesses are one, or it's either just me, or it's like me and my spouse.
Yep.
If it's you and your spouse, or it's you by yourself, and you're putting the money in, you're the investor, you're maxing out your credit cards, you're taking out a second mortgage, that's what, you're doing it. It's your business. An S Corp, in my opinion, is ideal. Why? 2 reasons. One, you can be a W-2 employee of an S Corp.
Yep.
But you cannot be a W-2 employee of an LLC where you own more than, I think, 14% or 12%. It depends on your state.
Or a C Corp.
Well, you could be an employee of a C Corp, but C Corps come with a lot of other things to consider.
Yeah.
So that really, C Corp for most small businesses, either overkill or should be the top of the food chain, or the mothership that everything else kind of goes back up to.
Which is what we are, correct.
Until you get far enough down the path, there's typically, for most people, they don't need a C Corp right now. But an S Corp is great. Why S Corp? So you can be an employee. That's cool. Spouses can both be owners. You can, there's just a million things you can do. But here's the thing. Most entrepreneurs have, I've got this thing going. I've got some money from this MLM thing I got involved in. I'm still working a W-2 job. I get, $1,500 a year from this oil well that my grandparents invested in. And I have all this money. My spouse is doing something. I'm doing something. So we have various streams of income. And an S Corp, it all just goes in onto your Schedule C. Everything sort of sifts out. You take whatever deductions are appropriate. And it's easy, because it's an easy way to combine all of your jazz.
Right.
And this is considering you're not mega rich yet, but you're doing well. You're making 100, 200, 300, 400,000 a year. And from various sources. If you're sort of, I'd say under that 400,000 a year, an S Corp is a very, very good way to operate. And it can go much, much larger.
Well, they can. There's a lot of larger businesses that we work with that are definitely S corps.
Absolutely. I'm
1000%.
saying over time, if you have enough money coming into your home, you may start wanting to create greater separation of all that for tax planning purposes.
Yeah.
But let's not go down that rabbit hole. The last thing I want to say is LLCs. LLCs, if Michelle and I are going to start a company together and we're going to both be involved in it, we're going to bring resources to it, we're going to use our superpowers to make it work. An LLC is fantastic because it's utterly flexible. We can both own, Michelle could own 90%, but maybe I own 10%, but I brought all the money in, but we're losing money for the first year. So I say, I'm going to take 100% of the losses to offset other gains in my portfolio, even though she owns almost all the company. It's not like a corporation where everything's done based on your pro rata share ownership. So LLCs, you can make up the rules. You can change the rules midstream. They're super flexible. They can have an S corp has to be owned by an American human being, where a C corp or an LLC can be owned by people from almost any country, can be owned by another corporation, or LLC can be owned by a trust, can be owned by a nonprofit, can be really, really good. Mom and pop shops, S corp is great. What else are LLCs good for? Well, you can transfer assets easily in LLCs. So if you're going to own real estate that's going to be transient, it's going to be moving through, you're buying, sell, LLC. If you're going to do oil and gas leases, and invest and get the deduction and not pay any tax on that, because you get to use pre-tax money on oil and gas investments. LLC, great place to own stuff like that. But then the LLC is going to be owned up here probably by a corporation of some sort, C corp or S corp, probably C corp. If all of a sudden you've got 5 or 6 or 10 LLCs, and then you have a C corp up here that nobody knows who owns, and they're the one member of all these LLCs. So you start to create a circumstance where you, the human being, own nothing but control everything.
Which is where you want to be.
Which is where you want to be. And so that's sort of a very thumbnail sketch on C corp, S corp, LLC.
Now you can also make that transition. You can go from an S corp to a C corp.
Only every 3 years.
Every 3 years, correct?
Yes. And they don't like you to do it because based on what's going on in what Congress has just passed or what's going on in your state. You could shop for the cheapest tax treatment every year, and the government, like anybody else, wants predictable revenues, and they just don't let you do it. And remember, an S corp starts out as a C corp, and then you make this S election.
Now, what's the benefits? What do you see the benefits when selling a company and when packaging, getting ready to sell? Do you see any benefits having an S corp over a C corp over S corp, LLC? Do you see any benefits for that?
No.
When you're planning your exit?
Because when we're selling, we're starting to compartmentalize everything because we're only selling those assets. As the seller, I may want to look at how we're currently structured as I'm preparing to sell. To make sure I'm in the most tax advantage situation. Correct. Or I have something to do. The money's going to go somewhere without it going through the capital gains, gate.
Correct.
And so,
there's a lot of different strategies. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, but that's what you're great at, and it's something that you really want to have a professional help you with that before you do it, because. I had a guy call me, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And I charge an hourly fee to ask if you want me to really look. Everybody's like, can I just pick your brain? It's like, no, you cannot just pick my brain.
Oh, you mean I'm not the only one that gets that? People are like, I just bought your book. Can I just talk to you for a few hours? I'm like, no.
I just spent $18 or $20. $27.95. For which Michelle probably got $4 or something. And all the money goes to the publisher. And
Yeah. And you
and
want
now
to pick my
you owe
brain for
me.
2 hours.
But the thing is, people appreciate what they pay for it anyway. So if you give it to them free, they usually don't act on it. If you charge them a hefty fee, and you give them, and you're legit, like you can actually teach them something like I know you can, Michelle, and I believe I'm in that category too.
Sure.
People will take action. So somebody called my assistant. They wanted to have me look at a contract. They're going to sell their company. And I said, well, I need at least 2 hours up front, which is $2,000 an hour. This is not work I want to do. I am not a consultant. I'm not a
And
lawyer.
you're not an attorney. Yeah.
And I'm not a lawyer. No, I'm not a lawyer, not a CPA, and I'm not a consultant. I own companies. That's what I do. But I do know some things. And so these guys paid. They were a little gripey about it. I sure hope. So I had an hour. I wanted 1 hour to read the document, which took more than an hour, but that's what I charged them, and an hour for the conversation. And we sat on a phone call for 40 minutes probably with them telling me all their stuff, and and their lawyer was on there and their accountant was on there. And they were telling me all the reasons why they think they have this really dialed in. And I said, okay, have you guys looked at this section here? Because I'm of the opinion, and the lawyer and CPA can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I think if you fix this, which really had to do with exactly how the company was owned, you can save yourself several $100,000 in the sale, in taxes. And everybody sat there quietly, and then the professionals were like, "Oh, he's right. He's right." Sometimes even professionals need somebody like Michelle Seiler Tucker, who understands the transactional nature of it versus just the pragmatic process. Here's how you write a contract. Here's how you do a tax return. You need somebody who's looking at the transaction and what are the byproducts of a transaction.
Yeah.
And that's why a business broker is so important, because they
M&A
understand.
advisor, business brokers sell pizzerias and coffee shops.
Okay,
Restaurants.
well, that's your
M&A
vernacular.
advisor sells larger businesses.
Okay, business. Okay, well, what Michelle
Everybody
does,
says that.
whatever her vernacular, I support it and I endorse it.
Thank you.
but somebody who's in the business of helping people buy and sell, and especially mergers and acquisitions. Right? Acquisitions are easy, mergers are hard. It's easy to buy something, but to get it to fit in with something else
It's
is
very
always a
difficult.
challenge.
Yeah.
That's why somebody who's in that as a professional is important. And that's not me, that's you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad people are listening. I have no idea how many people are listening, but I hope a lot of people will pay attention to, if you're trying to sell something, don't keep your own counsel. Make sure you get some other perspective on it, because you may leave thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the table by something that you simply don't know you can do.
Yeah. And, that's such a brilliant point, because it's always been, I've been doing this 22 years. You know that. I've been doing this as long as you and I have known each other. And every seller's like, no, I got my own attorney. No, I have my own CPA. And we have this conversation before I ever start working with them, because I'm always educating and saying, listen, you probably have a great attorney. You probably have a great CPA for what they do. But how many deals have they done? How many M&A transactions have they closed? How many tax mediations have they done? Do they know anything about DST, the first sales trust? And the answer is no, but they still want to use these professionals. And what you get with a true M&A professional, M&A advisor, is you get their circle of influence, you get their resources, you get their attorneys, their CPAs, and they know what they're doing. I have a group of CPAs and attorneys. I have attorneys who are also CPAs. They're licensed, both professionals, and they know so much more what they're doing than the local CPA or the local attorney. but people become stubborn. We got a guy right now where I could save him about $12 million in taxes, and he doesn't want to use the DST. He's like, no, that's okay. I don't want to use it. I don't want to lose control. But if you know anything about certain DSTs, you're not losing control. Yes, it's arm's length, because if it's not an arm's length, then you're going to be taxed on it. But there's a trustee. They can't spend your money without your authorization to do so. But they just don't listen because they think they're professionals, know everything. And so it's always so important to align yourself with the M&A advisor that really has those professionals, that professional team. And even with that professional team, like my attorneys will say, look, you hire Michelle, I'm going to save you about 10% on your bill because she does all the heavy lifting. But when it comes time to doing that negotiations, Aaron, they don't know what to do. It's, I come up with 20 different ideas and I come up with maybe two.
Well,
one or two.
They've never done it before.
And that's not their job. Their job is
No.
to legalize everything and make sure you're protected and make sure, that they're decreasing your tax liability and make sure that, that you're not going to get bit in the end because of reps and warranties and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, that's such a huge, huge, huge point.
Yes. And that's why I love what you do. I want to go back to those entities, because the other thing that I've sort of we've talked around a little bit, but I haven't actually said it, is this. So I'm just closing on two companies right now. Both of them are very entrepreneurial businesses. One of them, the seller, has never sold a company before. She came out of school. She's a CPA. She built the company up. She's making money. She's hired a bunch of people. There's about, I can't remember if there's 8 or 10 people that work there for her, and they're growing. And we're starting to talk about this. We're going to bring her under the tent. So she's still going to be an owner. We're going to be owners, but we're going to now have a lot of influence in the direction of that business. And one of the hardest things was to get her, with all of her education, with all of her gifts, with all of her success, to see the strata: owner, board member, employee. So officer, employee, right? In her mind, that's all one thing. It's mine. It's my business. And I was saying in writing up the agreements, I said, well, okay, but you're an owner. That's not going to change. But if we come in and now we're, in it for half of the responsibility, you are an owner, but you could quit. You could walk away and leave it to us to have to pick up the pieces. Your job is separate from your ownership stake. Whenever I hear business owners go, well, I didn't have very much money, so I gave these people these shares, right? And now they're causing a problem. Or they thought, oh, I brought this person and I gave them 10% of my company and then they quit. You think you're going to get the shares back, but you're not. They have the shares now. Yeah. Right? When we start to understand there's a difference between ownership, board, which is separate from owners, even though it may include them, it's separate from owners or operators. The board is supposed to look at what decisions are. Should we sign the lease? Should we loan that money? Should we take the loan? Should we increase the CEO's salary? Should we start a health insurance program, a 401k? Should we do a 401k match? Should we keep money in petty cash in the drawer? There are literally thousands of items that are, by the law, are required to be written up in a board resolution. So if all of a sudden the listeners are going, well, wait a minute, I've signed leases, I've put money in petty cash, I've given myself a raise, I've started buying health insurance. Yeah, so you did all those things when you were in board of director mode. You didn't know it, but you were. Yeah. Why? Because you're in board of director mode. Well, just everybody think about this for a second. Michelle, you think about it too. When you are relaxed enough in your brain, you're not just doing what's in front of you, right? When you're chilled out enough where you start to get kind of creative ideas about what to do with the business. Where are you? I mean, most people tell me I'm in the shower.
I'm on the airplane.
You're on an airplane sitting there quietly. You're on an airplane. You're in the shower. You're driving in the car. Some people say when I'm falling asleep. Others say when I wake up abruptly at 2 a.m, right? I'm thinking about those things. Okay, then you're in board of director mode. You're not an owner at that moment, and you're not an officer. You're the board of directors, even if it's just you alone. And if you're standing in the shower or sitting on the airplane or driving in the car, you're not going to go, we need to call this meeting to order. Let's take roll. Okay, we have a full quorum. We're going to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last meeting because, we're in the shower.
Even if it's you by yourself.
Yeah, just you. So you feel like you're schizophrenic, right? But if you have a corporation or an LLC, and if you're taking corporate deductions and you're wanting corporate lawsuit protection, you're wanting the corporate veil to separate your personal stuff or some other company that you own stuff from over here, you must, by law, hold board meetings and write a resolution at or near the time that the decision is made. When you get audited, it doesn't matter how great your financials are. If you haven't written anything in your minute book, if you haven't put your name on a stock certificate, taken it out of the 3-ring binder and put it over in your safety deposit box, you don't even own the company. If your name's
now
not
listen to that. You got to say that again.
If you haven't issued yourself stock, you don't own the company.
That's right. So this is huge. How many businesses are actually compliant?
Well, we work
Operating
with
a board.
huge numbers of clients. I speak to thousands and thousands of people a year. We have almost 50,000 customers. I would say when we meet people, 95+% are not doing this.
Yeah. And that's not just small businesses.
Mm-mm.
That's larger business. That's medium-sized businesses. That's even, I've seen businesses with, 100 to 500 employees not be compliant.
I call the ones that you're probably describing, I call them not small, but closely held. Like
Yes.
I own the business.
Like I have a brother and sister right now that own a $65 million company that we're selling, and they're not compliant.
No, because they talk to each other all the time. They're
Yeah.
not thinking about official board meetings. They've grown up together. They know each other, whatever.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If you want, I'll give you 2 quick examples. One was a guy I was speaking at a big conference center. I was rushing through the empty hallway to get backstage because I was late for my talk. And
yeah, I was probably there when you were late.
You might have been. Well, there were banners up with our faces on them all over the place. And so people knew I was one of the speakers. So I'm hustling down the hall, and this guy all bent up on crutches, the thing that wrap around his forearm or his biceps.
Yeah.
And he's limping, all broken and crushed down the thing. And he comes around the corner. I'm hustling. I go in my mind, I hope he doesn't talk to me. But he stops me. Aaron, can I ask you a question? Sure. You don't know me, but I'm one of your clients. I use your corporate veil program. You guys do my minutes and resolutions. Great. A couple of years ago, I left my home to go run an errand, and I got in a terrible cop into my body. And he said, the worst thing was I was at fault. I caused the accident, and the other people were also severely injured. And they sued us. And of course, they got all my insurance money, but they got everything. They got the house, they got the boat, they got the vacation house, they got the retirement money, they got the kids' college money, they got everything. But they couldn't take my business because that corporate veil was in place. And so we were able to rent a home, and I was able to take care of my family and meet my obligations and take care of my medical issues and all this stuff. I lost all my personal stuff, but they couldn't take my company. So there's a reason why you want the corporate veil in place, why the minutes, resolution, stock ledger, all that is managed properly. The juxtaposition on that, the flip side, I go to speak at this women's business conference in Indianapolis. This really cute, pretty young African-American lady comes running across the room, and she throws her arms around me and gives me a big hug. Hey, Aaron, I've been so excited to see you. And I'm like, who is this? I don't know who this is.
It's one of your fans, Aaron. Get used to it.
So she says, I said, why were you so excited? What do you want to tell me? She goes, like 4 or 5 years ago, I became one of your clients and you guys do my minutes and you call and your team's great. But after a year, I thought I'm pretty small and I see what to do. And am I kind of a sucker? Like, am I kind of stupid to keep paying this company to do this? But she said, but I renewed and I renewed again. And every year I wondered, am I kind of foolish that I'm doing this over and over again? And this is not a lot of money. This is inexpensive. I'm talking about $50 a month, right? To use the service. But anyway,
$50 a month, they could they could save your life. It could save your life.
Yeah. The first year is $1,000 and it drops down to $499 after we've gotten you caught up. But anyway, I'm not here to sell anything. My point is, she wanted to throw her arms around me and thank me because she said, I applied to be a government contractor as a double minority, a Black woman. She goes, you know what the first thing they asked me for? 3 years of minutes and resolutions. They wanted to see my minute book and see 3 years that I was operating like a real business. Even though
she had a business and she was getting a government contract.
She wanted to become a vendor to the government.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a business. Yeah.
Okay. So the first part of their due diligence was 3 years of minutes and resolution. And she said to me, and I had them. Now, it's pretty dull. Oh, we're going to write down your minutes. We're going to ask you questions and figure out what needs to be in resolution form. We're going to make sure your stock ledger has the right things written in it. That's not like make $1 million in a month or drop 50 pounds in 60 days, right? It's not like that. Come to the beautiful resort with all the beautiful people in bathing suits and sun and drink your pina colada. I don't do that stuff. I do stuff that's form entities and make sure they stay compliant so the business owners that we work. Matter of fact, our mission statement is we build a fortress around our clients' personal and business assets. That's what we do.
And every business owner needs that.
Everyone does. And we're 51 years old now in the company. We have tens and tens and tens of thousands of clients. And we provide really basic, we don't do the sexy stuff. We do all the structural stuff so you can go out and build whatever, mansions in the clouds that you want, but we'll make sure that your foundation is solid. And one of the most critical places where people mess that up is not remembering there is a board, not having regular board meetings, not writing the things down in proper format and then putting them in your minute book.
So what happens if you don't do that? Like if she didn't have Laughlin Associates and she didn't do that, and she's trying to get the government contract, which can catapult our business to the next level, obviously.
Right.
Then what do? You go backwards and try to figure all that out? Can you go backwards? Is there?
You can if you know what you're doing and you don't do it fraudulently. Our service includes, so let's just say you wanted to sign up for the service. So it's $1,000 that first year. And that's going to go forward from today for 12 months.
$1,000 a month for the first year.
$1,000 for the year.
Oh, for the year. So, okay.
$80 a month or whatever.
Okay.
So we're going to call you every month. We're going to interview stuff out of you. We're going to create the record set, but we're also going to go back up to 5 years and interview that stuff out of you and create all of that as well. And so anybody can do it, but you have to know what questions to ask. You have to know what things need to be written down. You need to have some ability or do your own research to figure out the right format, and we just do it all the time. That's why we have over 200 law firms that send us this work, because they say we're cheaper and faster than the paralegals.
Well, you are. I mean, I own a company because I own multiple companies as well. I partner with business owners, and we have a law firm that was doing ours, but they're so freaking expensive.
Super expensive.
And then you got to remember to call them. You got to remember to follow up with them. You got to remember to do what you're told. You guys just make it automatic, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's done for you. We call you. If you'll spend 10 minutes a month with us, you'll be okay. The first couple of months will be more because we're trying to get everything caught up. But we do it all for you. And you don't backdate, but I'm just going to give everybody a hack right here. When you go backwards, so remember you have a board of directors, and every single year, the shareholders re-elect the board. That also needs to be in your corporate minute book, the re-election of the board.
If you have the owner that's a board member.
It's super easy to do it if you're the only one,
Yeah.
right? But every year it changes. It's not static. It doesn't just stay the board. There has to be an election every year. So the current board can go back and reconstruct the documents and can, here's the hack, ratify the decisions of the previous boards.
Wow.
So it can all be done. But guess what? Almost no entrepreneur I've ever met wants to do that kind of stuff because it's not very fun.
They're too busy. They're too busy working in a business, not on the business. They got their hands in, I always call entrepreneurs firefighters.
Yeah.
Because they're so busy putting out fires.
Well, and
and I'm an entrepreneur.
I like entrepreneurs. If anybody's ever seen that, you have a daughter. Of course, I like this stuff myself. I'll just full disclosure. But if you saw the movie Frozen, right?
Yeah.
And there's the scene where she breaks out of everything. And she's, the cold never bothered me anyway. She builds her ice castle.
Yeah.
That's how most entrepreneurs want to be. They want to have a vision and make cool things happen. What they don't want to do is go back and go, oh, what's the niggly little paperwork stuff that has to be done? Because they've got big visions. And so that's why when you're selling a company or you want to buy a company, you go to somebody like Michelle. If you want to build something big, make sure a company like ours or your law firm that you were using is making sure the launch pad for your rocket is solid. So the rocket doesn't go and kill all the astronauts. It takes off. It does an Elon Musk. It goes up, it does what it needs to do. And then the booster comes right back and lands where it took off from. You can build whatever you want. Make sure your systems are right. Well,
you got to put the protection in there. I think that's my 7P protection.
Well, you got to have protection. And
anyway,
there you go.
Awesome. So we're wrapping up here. You just gave so much great advice, and I hope everybody listening really follows up and contacts Aaron, and we'll make sure we'll put off his contact in the show notes, and we'll let him tell you the best way to contact with him. But everybody needs this. I mean, you're talking $50 a month. Look at that gentleman that would have lost his business. Not only did he lose, his health, like Aaron said, he's broken up. He lost all of his personal belongings. And if it wasn't for Aaron, for the Laughlin organization, he would have lost his entire company. So this is so important because you don't know what contract you're going to get. Just like this lady who got the government contract. Moreover, big companies that are looking for vendors, looking for suppliers, are doing their due diligence. Clients are really starting to do their due diligence. And beyond anything else, buyers who are looking to buy your business are doing their due diligence. That's why it was so imperative for me to have Aaron on the phone, on the call, on the podcast today.
So, Michelle, can I throw something out? And
of course,
we didn't talk about this before, but let me ask if it's okay.
So you wait to ask me on air when I have to say yes.
Well, I have something that's free that will help us figure out where are they with their minutes, resolutions. Are they using their entity properly? Have they done their stock right? And it's all free. I asked my team, you think I'm kidding? I didn't. When we talked yesterday, we didn't have any plan. I said to my team, what can we do that will be high value and that we can offer for free if somebody doesn't know where they are? And we have something called the snapshot that it really just looks at what entity are you in? How have you done on your compliance? What are you missing? It's that kind of a thing. And it's on our website for $399. We sell them all the time. But I said, what can we do? And they said, well, we could do the snapshot. And I said, all right, if Michelle's cool with that, I've got a QR code that they just emailed or they just texted it to me since we've been on recording. And we can hold it up to the camera if anybody would like us.
Yeah, 1,000%. Let's do that now. That's so kind of you and generous of you.
Well,
and every single one of my listeners, my followers should absolutely 1,000% get this.
See that okay?
Yeah, I can see it fine.
I don't know if your phone is there, if you can check it, if it works, but
yeah, I can check
I haven't checked it. It literally came to me while we've been on.
Well, that's how us entrepreneurs roll, right? That's how we roll. Yep, it works.
Okay, cool. It just goes to a page.
We will also include that QR code in the show notes, and we'll make sure. I think we can do that. We'll make sure we include it in the podcast.
She just sent it to me while we were talking. I thought, oh, well, here's something that's free and that's useful, and that is in alignment with what we talked about today. And guys, I just want to, I want to say this. I've been around Michelle Seiler Tucker for a long time now, for a number of years. She is the real deal. If you've thought about working with her, if you want to buy something or sell something, talk to her. If you want to get some guidance on how to tighten up things that are loose, she didn't ask me to pitch for her. I'm just telling you, I see her in lots of different settings with lots of different people, and she just is the real deal. And I've met a lot of people who make claims but can't actually follow up. It's like they learned it in a book. They've never really done it. They know how to talk the talk, but not walk the walk. Michelle is legit. I encourage you to, if you're thinking about doing something, at least give her the chance to put her 2 cents in on your transaction.
Thank you, Aaron. I so appreciate that.
Well, you deserve it. You've done great things. This book, by the way, she asked me yesterday, have you read it? I said, well, I've skimmed through it, but here's what I know. I knew Michelle was there, and she's also got Sharon Lecter on here. You know, if you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you think Robert Kiyosaki wrote that? He didn't. It's got Sharon Lecter's name on it. Sharon was the brains behind that operation. Sharon is the one that the Napoleon Hill Foundation came to step into Napoleon Hill's shoes and write more books. Sharon and Michelle, dang. Because Sharon's a CPA, right? She's a CPA. So she's
a
money,
CPA, yeah,
management, and you're about corporate transactions and mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
My goodness sakes, what a dynamic duo.
It gets even better than that, Aaron, because you know this too. Her husband is an IP attorney, intellectual property attorney.
Yeah.
So he threw his 2 cents in there and talked about IP and how to protect it.
Yeah, he's great. I've spent a lot of time with them. I love Sharon. Matter of fact, we showed up at an event one time. This was after there'd been a tragedy in her family.
Yeah.
And it was her first outing out. And we somehow ended up on the same airplane. Well, it's not unusual because we're flying into the destination. And she said to me, Aaron, will you be my date for the next 3 days? I need somebody to stand with me. And I said, absolutely. And it was one of the greatest compliments anybody's ever given me in a business setting, because she was really having a hard time. She's talking about it now. It's her story to tell. I won't tell it. But she talks about this thing. I was actually sitting with her and Michael when they got the phone call. We were sitting together.
Oh my gosh.
Listening to Barry Spilchuk give a talk.
Oh my gosh.
And anyway, I looked at when I got your book and realized that you and Sharon had done it together. I thought, dang, the combined level of experience and practical application between these two people, super powerful. So get the book, read the book.
Thank you. And it's endorsed by Steve Forbes.
It is endorsed by Steve Forbes, and Steve Forbes is fabulous, and he's right on the front. But I'm going to tell you, you look at some of the other people in here who are, here's a guy with an interesting perspective, Rob Angel, inventor of Pictionary, who realized he didn't know how to get games on the shelf. So he licensed them way back when, and he's been a multimillionaire ever since. And every time you buy Pictionary, Rob gets paid.
Yep.
And there's a guy who didn't try to fight the system. He worked with the system. Ron Klein, who's today, if you're watching live, is their anniversary, 63 years with Arlene.
Yes, I saw that. I need to contact him.
He's the guy that automated the bond trading market and created the magnetic stripe on your credit card. Michelle Seiler Tucker's got a bunch of really cool people in that book. I noticed that. I
need you on here. I need you on here. We have a bunch more testimonials in the front, but we definitely need Aaron Young.
Brian Tracy, one of my friends, the first guy that asked me, we didn't ever talk about my tragic story, which we can do another time. But first guy to ask me to speak when I got done with that whole mess. Les Brown, dear friend. Jack Canfield just invited me to go to Peru. I've only interviewed Tom Hopkins. Mark Victor Hansen, just had breakfast with him 2 months ago. These are the badasses of the industry. These are business titans. They sold Rich Dad for $500 million. You guys hang out with people who are doing what you want to do. That's Michelle. You're in the right place today because you're with somebody who's with the right people. That makes all the difference versus somebody who goes, I technically know how to do it.
And hang out with Aaron Young too.
For
Like
certain
you
things.
just said, he knows all these people. He's best friends. He's friends with all these people.
What I'm saying is we know each other because we met in places where you're with a certain group of people. You look back at the Impressionist artists and Matisse and Manet and Monet, and they all hung out together.
Yeah.
I just watched
your network equals your net worth. Your network equals your net worth.
Disney Channel. I just watched Industrial Light and Magic, and they're talking about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Godfather. Why am I blanking on his name? Anyway, all these directors were buddies when they're all broke. Thomas Edison, Ford, Lindbergh, right? They were a mastermind group. They all lived on the same cul-de-sac in Florida. It's not a matter of, oh, I know them all too. It's a matter of when you get in the right circle, you start knowing people in the circle. And if you want to get to that circle, figure out an entree, and an entree may be working with somebody like Michelle to even get in the room. You can't buy your way in the room. You can't buy your way. You have to get invited. And it's funny.
And then you got to ask the right questions. You got to serve other people to be able to stay in the room.
Yeah, you can't be self-serving. You got to be additive.
Cannot be self-serving.
So guys, make smart choices so that you can actually, I'm going to give a shameless plug. If you want to actually exit rich, make smart choices along the path. Begin with the end in mind. Know what you're working toward when you start, so you'll form the right entity. You'll do your corporate compliance. You'll put buy-sell agreements in place. You'll do all the things that will give you the greatest likelihood of success. And so I'm delighted I could be a part of this today. I hope people will let us help them out. I'll email you the snapshot. You can put it somewhere. And
thank you, Aaron. And we're going to talk about how to make your program part of my program, because it starts with compliance. It starts with getting your ducks in a row. It starts with doing things the right way. And it's not what you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you don't know. And I guarantee you, so many entrepreneurs are like, oh my God, I'm one person, or, oh my God, I have, 25 people. I didn't know I have to have a board. And so you need to start. Now, so now you need to implement, you need to organize, you need to hire Aaron Young's company. And move forward. Take advantage of that QRO that snapshot, right? It's called snapshot.
Snapshot, yeah. Just where are you and what's working and what's not working. And
hire Laughlin Associates. So thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for that great plug. I mean, I'm gonna have to have you on more often.
I'll talk about that. Well, I don't do it. I also don't go on programs where I don't believe in the people. That's sincere, Michelle. I don't go on programs where I don't believe in what somebody's doing.
Yeah. I agree, 1,000%. Well, thank you so much. Any last minute go to nuggets or any last minute hacks you want to tell our audience?
I would just say this, guys. There's no better thing than you can do for yourself than figure out what you want out of the effort you're putting into whatever you're doing. So don't just work to accomplish something and get specific. And if you do that, you will find, well, like Thoreau said, you'll meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It's the way you get in the room. It's the way you advance quickly. It's the way you land on your feet after a problem, is when you get clear on the outcome that you want. And you can go to somebody like Michelle and say, Michelle, here's what I'm trying to accomplish with selling my company. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish by buying something. And you know why you're doing it and where you're going. Instead of just what can I make money at, or what can I, if you get clear on the outcome and quit worrying about how you're going to get there, get clear on the outcome. Yeah. The other stuff fills in. The problem, the people suffer from a lack of specificity. Get really specific about what you want, and you'll find you'll get there much faster. Yeah. I mean, that's what Think and Grow Rich talks about. And in my book, Exit Rich, we talk about the GPS exit, where you just said what I always say, start with the end in mind, what Stephen Covey said. Stephen Covey, right? Yeah. And then figure out that destination, know what you're worth today. But absolutely get crystal clear. And that takes more than just thinking about it in the shower or thinking about it on the airplane. You really need some deep soul searching and some deep meditation. And I've been trying to meditate, but you know how fast I move there, and it's hard for me to sit still. But that really takes some soul searching. 5 minutes.
Yep, 5 minutes. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on. It's good to see you again, my dear friend.
It's
And
nice to see you, and we'll be together in November, I think.
yes, and we'll definitely have you back on. And thanks a lot to all my Exit Rich fans, everybody who reads Exit Rich, everybody who listens to our podcast. This is some brilliant information, brilliant. And it's easy. It's easy to start and it's easy to stay compliant once you engage Aaron and his team and Laughlin Associates. So we'll put everything in the show notes. Share this with your sphere of influence. Share this with your coworkers, your fellow entrepreneurs, your family, your friends, everybody you know. Share this information because it could literally save your business. It could save your life. It could save your family.
Amen.
So thank you so much. Until next Tuesday, we'll see you on another episode of Exit Rich. Thanks again.